Hey guys, Thursday, February 6, 2020, and you're watching the Daily Mix TV. Hi, my name is Sean Patrick Hillman. So yeah, we haven't had an edition since last week. It's been a little crazy around here. There are so many things going on in the news right now, and there's so much political discourse that often it's very hard to get through the weeds and get to the heart of the matter, or frankly, the truth of the matter. My point to you guys is do yourselves a favor. Before you start sharing things on Facebook or on Instagram or Twitter that you can't actually confirm, don't. Just double check the stories that you're sharing, because frankly, the amount of misinformation that's going around about politics, certainly about the coronavirus, is getting out of hand, and it's causing a lot of problems. So I'll get off my soapbox, onto the news. Kansas City Chiefs took down the San Francisco 49ers on football's biggest night on Sunday. What I want to talk about is the advertising. Herein lies the issue. Historically, people looked to Super Bowl Sunday, obviously for football's biggest night, also because of the ads. The ads unto themselves were a reason to celebrate. Why? Because there was a lot of new creativity, there were a lot of programs and promos that were released on Super Bowl Sunday. Now, with social and everything else that the internet really is today, most of those ads get leaked or released prior to Super Bowl Sunday. So it really does take away from those special moments on that day while you're eating your wings or your pizza or your chips or your beer, or whatever you're drinking or eating. It takes away from that moment of discovery. So advertisers have needed to be a little more creative. Well, there's one brand in particular that we have to talk about from Sunday that just honestly, I am so disheartened and disappointed. It's not even crazy. I mean, it's bad enough that advertising these days is mediocre at best. But Planters Peanuts and the whole baby nut thing, what the hell were you people thinking? That's the best you could do, a ripoff of Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian? So for those of you who don't know what's going on or what happened, let me give you a little bit of background. A few weeks ago, it was leaked that Mr. Peanut was going to die, that an over 100-year-old icon of a brand was going to be put to rest. So this ad got out, and it starred Wesley Snipes, and I don't remember the other actor's name, but it starred Wesley Snipes, and Mr. Peanut gave his life to save the other two actors. Okay, fine. If you're going to kill off an icon like that, first of all, do it in a way that's fun and creative, not a way that is poorly produced, poorly written, poorly managed, poorly acted. I mean, the whole thing was so badly done. I honestly, you guys get the shaking my head of the week. I'm not sure what Planters was thinking, why the brand team approved this campaign from the agency. But at the end of the day, it's everything that's wrong with business and advertising right now in chasing the millennial or chasing a trend or chasing Gen Z. We need to stop doing that. As marketers, you need to focus on the DNA of the brand, and that's exactly what Planters didn't do. So basically, they then come out a week later stating that because Kobe Bryant died, they're not going to release the ad. Okay, well, the ad's already been released. You obviously already have another version that you're going to release on Super Bowl Sunday that celebrates Mr. Peanut's life. Well, that's not exactly what happened. So they're using Kobe Bryant to keep the noise going on the brand. Then they release this horrible spot on Super Bowl Sunday where, of course, there was a celebration of life for Mr. Peanut. And then Baby Nut is born out of the remains of Mr. Peanut. Come on, guys. I've seen more originality at a Hollywood reboot convention than this. It's surprising given who the agency is, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus. You can do your own homework. But at the end of the day, this is everything that's wrong with advertising. You got no points for brand communication, brand messaging, focusing on the DNA of your brand. You basically did this to Mr. Peanut and to anybody older than the age of 30 who genuinely cares about the brand. So for that, you guys get the shaking my head of the week. For the other ads that went up on Super Bowl Sunday, I got to tell you, Jeep definitely hit it home. They hit all brand messaging points. They went through the trail adventure life kind of notion. And they brought back Bill Murray to Gobbler's Knob to celebrate Groundhog Day, which is exactly when Super Bowl Sunday was. So they hit the trifecta in terms of all of the points in the spot and, and what they were supposed to be doing. Now, they capitalized on the nostalgia trend that's going on right now for Gen X, which is fantastic. And that certainly drives a deeper relationship for the brand. So I'm sure we're going to start to see sales go up of Jeep. Planners, I don't know what to tell you, but other than what were you thinking, you got to be out of your damn mind. The other loser of the night was Hulu. Hulu had spent all this money to do the spot. I mean, don't forget, this year's Super Bowl Sunday was the most expensive ever. And when you get into the ad that they did, they had egg on their face because they hired football superstar Tom Brady to promote Hulu's live sports streaming service. And that was just minutes after the service actually crashed. So, I mean, you just can't make this shit up. The fact that they spent all this money and they didn't have their back end locked down and done is just exactly what's wrong with business. So, again, I don't know what's going on, but frankly, we need to get back to brass tacks and real creative advertising that's engaging, that's fun, that's memorable, because I guarantee you the retention rate from Super Bowl Sunday for a lot of these spots is minimal at best. President Trump has been acquitted on both charges of abuse of power and obstruction of justice following a week-long Senate impeachment trial. Trump is the third president in our history to face impeachment. Now, Senator Romney from Utah was the only Republican across party lines with his vote to convict Trump of abuse of power. The Constitution does require that 2/3 of present senators vote to convict a sitting president. Looks like there is a food fight in the app delivery service game. Grubhub has issued a cease and desist to rival ChowNow, who has accused Grubhub of bilking restaurants for sky-high commissions and fees it doesn't deserve. Essentially, here's what's going on. Grubhub is accusing ChowNow of disseminating false information for their own gain. Now, the bitter food fight comes as fees charged by Grubhub and other Silicon Valley food ordering and delivery companies have come under fire in the state of New York. The AG is looking into it. You've got a lot of state senators who are really upset about this because it's hurting small business. Now, New York City Council, this is interesting. The New York City Council is looking into legislation that could clamp down on these fees. And the state liquor authority has actually threatened to cap the commission services like Grubhub can charge at 10% or less. So ChowNow says it's basing its claims in part on Grubhub's own marketing materials. And that includes a 2018 document titled Grubhub Pricing that shows an average $40 food order could result in fees of $13.95 for Grubhub. That's about 34%, including delivery costs. Look, at the end of the day, here's the issue I have with Grubhub. First of all, they're more of a monopoly than anything else. They own Seamless. They bought, several other food delivery app services, and no one's doing anything about that. Yet, it's interesting that ChowNow has taken this tactic to go after Grubhub and remind restaurant owners, hey, guess what, guys? These people don't care about you. They're screwing you out of 30-40% of your money that you could get if you didn't use their service. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that tactic, but at the end of the day, it is a lightning rod issue in New York State right now, and I have a feeling that Grubhub is going to end up the one that has egg on its face by the end of this time. Macy's is pulling out of the weakest malls, closing 125 department stores as part of its reorganization in the face of online retail competition. The nation's original department store chain also announced they're cutting 2,000 corporate jobs. That's about 10% of their headcount. And they're going to move the headquarters from Cincinnati to New York. Now, the retailer is going to keep open 400 doors. They still plan to build an office tower on top of the flagship at Herald Square and to open smaller stores in strip mall centers. All right. As thousands of brick and mortar stores announce closures, one beauty retailer is bucking that trend, Sephora. Now, just so you guys are clear, my family actually did all the marketing and launch for Sephora in the United States, including myself. And I mean, at that time, you can't forget it was the late 90s. The department stores ruled the roost. Sephora was a new player in the field, and a lot of the department stores were very scared. Why? Because it was about approachability, because it was about self-service and the notion of mixing and matching across brands. When you go into a department store, typically what used to happen is you would get spritzed to death by a fragrance sampler, and then you'd go to the Chanel counter to pick up a red lipstick, and then they would push you into buying foundation and blush and all this other stuff. At Sephora, it really was a hands-off approach, and we positioned it as the candy land for women. We also looked at it as beauty without boundaries because there were so many international brands that Sephora had brought into the mix. Now, Sephora is owned by Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, LVMH, and what's happening now is they're bucking the closing trend. They're opening 100 doors this year in its biggest retail expansion to date outside of the launch year. When we opened Sephora in the United States, we launched 75 stores within the first 18 months. They're now opening 100 more doors this year alone. So they're doing very well. It's a very smart marketed brand. The way that they approach their VIB, the Sephora Loyalty Reward Program, even the way that they train a lot of their cast members that are on the show floor to talk with consumers, educate, train, those kinds of things. So for Sephora, the new smaller stores that they're going to open are going to be outside of shopping malls and focus on fragrance and hair care, adding to its 2,500 existing locations worldwide. Now, remember, you're talking about a $430 billion industry in global cosmetics by the year 2022. That is an insane amount of money. But for a brand like Sephora to focus on fragrance and hair care in these smaller stores that are opening in outside of shopping malls is a very smart move. Fragrance has been shunned for a little too long in the last decade. In terms of beauty segmentation, fragrance you had at the top at one point, it's not anymore. You have color and you have skincare. Skincare leapfrogged over everything, then cosmetics, then fragrance, because fragrance has not had a big emphasis in a while. So for them to focus on fragrance and hair care is a very, very smart move. Can't wait to see the results. Speaking of growth, Amazon continues to expand its brick and mortar presence. The online giant, the online giant is set to open 10 Amazon 4-star doors in this year alone, including an outpost at the new American Dream Mega Center in New Jersey. Now, Amazon debuted the 4-star concept in the fall of 2018, and to date, they've got 9 locations. So they're literally doubling their footprint. The 4-star store carries items that are most popular on Amazon.com, the ones that sell the best, the ones that are trending the best. And it's a very interesting platform. They're also expanding their Amazon Go platform as well, where you go in, grab, and literally grab and go, and it tracks by your smartphone what you've pulled off the shelf and then charges you once you walk out the door. So for Amazon, as usual, they're very creative. They're very smart in how they do their business. And frankly, I'm tired of hearing the excuse from retailers that Amazon is the reason for their woes. It's not. It's your lack of creativity, and it's your lack of real understanding of what the demographic is looking for. Now, speaking of issues in retail, 4 months after filing for bankruptcy protection, Forever 21 has reached a deal to offload all of its assets and remaining stores for $81 million. The fast fashion company is being sold to Authentic Brands Group, which recently bought Barney's, and mall operators Simon Property Group and Brookfield. Now, a judge still needs to approve this deal, while other interested bidders do have until tomorrow, February 7th, to put their bids in. Forever 21 had expanded for years, but there was no restructuring plan in place. So this is the issue with business today, and why I say there is just such an incredible amount of wannabe marketers and business people out there. What are you doing to change the paradigm, folks? How are you making the experience attractive or different for consumers? You aren't. Look at the company you're blaming for your woes, Amazon. They're now expanding their retail, their brick and mortar operations, and so is Sephora. Doesn't that tell you something? I mean, Macy's cutting, that many doors. I mean, we're talking, 250 or 125 doors closing. That's a big number. and they're getting rid of 10% of their headcount. That unto itself is a scary reminder of how bad things can really get, especially for a brand like Macy's, which is so big. Now, remember last year, 2 years ago, they acquired the brand Story, which is all about thematic selling, storytelling to sell products in store, those kinds of things. Macy's had rolled out this concept to so many doors. Yesterday, they announced they're cutting over half of them automatically off the top. And the usual excuses came through. It was, well, we'd always planned to do this. We expanded right away to get some learnings under the table so that we could move forward and, batten down the hatches and get this done. Okay, great. But you're still closing all of these store-within-a-store concepts, and you're closing 125 doors on top of it? Come on, guys. People are stupid, but in general, they're not that stupid. I mean, when you think about Wall Street and you think about business and you think about investors, you think about the end consumer. They're tired of seeing the excuses after excuses in why your business is doing so badly. So, guys, just act like an adult and do what you need to do. All right, now, speaking of foolishness, according to Google Trends, from January 18th to January 26th, searches for corona beer virus jumped 2,300% globally. Then searches for beer virus jumped 744% in the same period, and searches for beer coronavirus jumped 3,233%. Seriously? Then memes like this started popping up, which I love. Now, it's not from Corona, though I really wish it were, because that would be perfect for this brand. The reason why I bring this up, people need to stop believing everything they see on the internet. It's exactly what I said at the opening of the show. You've got to do your homework, folks. Just because something comes from CNN or Fox or, whoever it is, whichever side of the aisle you ascribe to, don't take it lock, stock, and barrel. Double check the facts before you start sharing that stuff on social, especially when you get into the coronavirus. How anybody thought this was attached to a beer brand is absolutely beyond me. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Zampetti family in Bridgewater, New Jersey. They own the local Gold's Gym franchise, and man, they do an incredible job running and expanding that business. Now, they're also big Rock 'em Rawhide supporters. So the charity that my wife Kylie and I created 9 years ago to help increase the level of adoptions of dogs and cats in shelters. The Zampettis have been there for the last number of years. They really have supported Rock 'em Rawhide. They're a great family, so loving and caring. As a matter of fact, over the holidays, and this is why I'm bringing them up, they collected a ton of donations for our friends at Somerset Regional Animal Shelter on behalf of Rock 'em Rawhide. So thank you, Rob and Mary. We love you guys. To top it off, Rob and Mary Zampetti's kids, Summer Cross and Savannah, they're just like their mom and dad. Very smart, hardworking, and incredibly caring. We love you guys. Stay pawsome. All right, for this week's Throwback Thursday, do you remember this?
By command of His Most Merciful Excellency, your lives are to be spared. Slaves you were, and slaves you remain.
Yeah, sadly, Hollywood legend Kirk Douglas passed away yesterday at the age of 103. Now, you want to talk about an icon, someone who lit the world on fire with his talent, and someone who really cared so much for his craft and those around him. So, I never met Mr. Douglas. I have met Michael Douglas's son. I've met Catherine Zeta-Jones a few times. And when you look at that family, okay, and you look at the things that they've done, it really is incredible. And it's just such a heartwarming thing to think about when you talk about Kirk and Michael. And yeah, I know the challenges Michael's son had. But when you look at Kirk and the legacy he left behind, it really is legendary. Now, on a personal note, speaking of passing, yesterday I went to a celebration of life for a dear old friend, Dr. Michael Garvey. Garvey was truly the definition of a Renaissance man. Such an accomplished veterinarian, a true gentleman, and an incredible friend. I bring this up for a couple of reasons. The primary being, do yourself a favor If there's somebody in your life who you love, someone who you respect, someone who you care for, don't wait till tomorrow to tell them. Tell them today. Second being, Garvey was a very rare soul in that he went out of his way for his friends in so many ways, and he often would be found sitting on a bar stool on the Upper East Side in Manhattan at a place called East River. And that's actually where I met Michael, thanks to my big sis, Rita Marie Schwartz. But Michael was, from that bar stool, he and I had debates in Latin. We would talk about all of the things that were going on in the news and politics, and talk about an incredibly educated person. And most of it was because he read on his own. Here's the deal. In honor of Dr. Garvey, do yourself a favor. Start reading a little more, okay? Look into what has made your business, your industry. Dr. Garvey was a force to be reckoned with respect to the veterinarian world. So certainly a game changer and a trailblazer in that segment. So I would ask that you please, in his honor, think a little bit more about your business. Think a little bit more about why you got into what you're doing, and then step it up a notch, because that's what he would have done. All right, kids, I'm out of time. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Daily Mix TV. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, comments, or story ideas, please email thedailymixtv@gmail.com. We'll catch up with you guys tomorrow on Friday.